My name is Tanny and I love to cook. As a Southern cook, I really love me some fried food, but I try not to eat it too often or too much. So when I do want to make something fried, I try to make sure it's something really special like today's recipe. Today I'm going to show you how I make my delicious and crunchy deep fried turkey wings. Yes, y'all, turkey wings. And I have a special trick to make sure they are very tender and moist even though they're deep fried. Let's get to cooking. These are the seasonings and aromatics that we're going to use in our beer brine to start off our delicious recipe. We're going to start off with kosher sea salt, dark brown sugar. If you have regular brown sugar, that'll work. Bay leaves, poultry seasoning, black pepper, and Budweiser beer. You can use any beer that isn't light to impart the most flavor. You want a turkey bag, some water, and I am also using sage. And for further aromatics, I'm using onion, lemon, and garlic. So I'm just going to add my water to a pot on the stove because we're going to heat up our brine first and then add our meat. So now I'm adding my beer to my water. Next up, I'm going to add in 1 cup of kosher salt. You'll notice it's not a lot of water, beer, and salt because I'm only doing a few turkey wings. If you're doing a whole turkey, then you'll want to increase the proportions of the ingredients. So because I'm using 1 cup of salt, I'm going to use 1 cup of brown sugar. Next up is my sage. I'm just going to eyeball this, but if you don't like sage, you don't have to use it. I'm going to use just under a tablespoon, but if you like it more, then you can certainly add more. Next up is the bay leaves. I really like bay, so I'm going to add several bay leaves. Next up is poultry seasoning. I love this stuff made by McCormick. I'll have a link to it to buy it from Amazon in the description box below this video. It's a blend of other seasonings and it makes for a delicious profile. Next up is our ground black pepper. Again, I'm just measuring this freehand. I sliced up my lemons to add them, including the rind, so you want to be sure that you wash your lemons ahead of time. I sliced up my onion. If you don't have fresh onion, then you can certainly use onion powder. And next up, I'm going to add in my chopped garlic, and you can use garlic powder if you don't have fresh garlic, or even minced garlic. A tablespoon or 2 would do here. And so I'm just going to blend this up. It's very beautiful and it smells so good even at this point. So the salt and the sugar is going to make sure it infuses into the meat of the turkey from the outer skin to the inner bone. And it's going to be so delicious. That's why I love to brine. So after it heats up, we need to cool it down before we add our meat to it. So I'm going to add some ice to a pot and then add my warm brine and let that ice melt down, so it's going to give me more brine and also bring my brine temperature down. After this, I'm going to stick it in the refrigerator while I work on my turkey pieces. I have my butterball turkey wings here ready for me to wash. I do wash my meat and poultry before I cook it. I like to make sure there are no yucky bits on it that I need to clean off. Also, I make sure I pull off any extra feathers that are still left on. This piece looks good to me. So I wash it off thoroughly and then I let it soak in water for a few minutes. Now that I've dried it off, I am ready to slice it. Now I don't use the drums part while I deep fry the turkey wings unless the drum parts are really small. So here I'm going to cut off the drums and save them for another recipe that I'll show you later. I really just want to fry the flats and the tips on the ends. They're thinner, so they'll be easier to fry, and make sure they stay tender when I cook them and they don't get too tough. So that was a few pieces. So now that we have our turkey cut up, we're ready to proceed to the next step, which is putting it in our turkey bag and then pouring in our cool brine. It's very important that this brine is completely cool to refrigerator temperature. You don't want it heated because you don't want it to pre-cook your turkey pieces in the refrigerator because bacteria can grow with that heat. So make sure your brine is sufficiently cool. If you find that you don't have enough brine for your turkey in the bag to be fully submerged, you can add in a little bit of water or a little bit more beer at this point. So now I'm just tying up my bag, and I'm going to stick this bag in the refrigerator overnight. So the next day has come. I'm ready to cook my turkey wings. So I'm going to drain the meat from the brine in the sink. Pretty simple process. I'm going to add my pieces to my bowl. Now I'm ready to bread it. So I have my eggs. I'm going to crack into a bowl. I'm using brown eggs here. I think brown eggs are just prettier. And because we're going to dip our turkey pieces into the egg, we want to be sure we season it. So I'm adding black pepper, I'm adding smoked paprika, as well as some lemon pepper. Lemon pepper always goes well with poultry. Now I'm gonna blend up the seasonings into my egg. It's important in the soul food cooking process that you season at each step, so that's why I'm seasoning the egg. Next up, I'm going to add flour to my bowl, and again, I'm eyeballing this with my measuring spoon, so I added my measuring cup. So I added 2 cups of flour. Now I'm adding 1 cup of yellow cornmeal, but I added another cup of flour. And so you can eyeball it to the proportions you like of flour versus cornmeal, but I do like both, more flour than cornmeal. Here I'm adding black pepper to season this bowl, as well as more lemon pepper, Lowry seasoning salt, and I'm mixing that together to make sure it's well incorporated. Next up, I'm taking my wing pieces and I'm dipping them in the egg, and then I'm going to dip them into my flour and cornmeal mixture. It's okay to let it sit for a few minutes after you dip it into your flour mixture before you actually fry it. So I'm going to get up a couple of batches in the egg and then in the flour. And I'm making sure the flour cornmeal mixture is sufficiently coating my meat. It's just kind of fun to play in the flour, actually, until you make a big mess and have to clean it up yourself. So here's my deep fryer. I love this Cuisine deep fryer. It's large, so it has a full-size basket as well as 2 smaller size baskets. It has a temperature gauge that lets you set it to a specific temperature. It is easy to turn the temperature from 320 to 375 depending on what you're cooking. It also comes with 2 smaller baskets, and I mentioned this in case you want to cook like fish and chips or french fries and chicken. Easy to do. I'll have a link to this fryer in my description box below. So next up, I'm adding my breaded turkey wings, and here, these turkey wings were small enough, I left the drums on. The meat is so gorgeous. We're going to put in our meat thermometer. You definitely want one of these when you're frying meat so that you don't have to cut the meat open to see if it's sufficiently cooked. For white meat turkey wings, we want it cooked 165 degrees to 175 degrees, with the knowledge that when you take your meat out of the fryer, it's going to raise in temperature as it rests for the first few minutes. So I mainly want to see that I get up to about 160 here. And then I'll drop it back for a few seconds in the grease. And I'm right where I want to be. That's right at 160. I'll have a link to this meat thermometer in the description box below the video in case you need to buy one. Once you become a seasoned cook, most don't even use a thermometer, and that's okay. You can tell by sight when your food is ready. In a bigger pot, you'll see your meat float to the top, but that's a little harder to see in a deep fryer like this. So I'm just letting my meat cook, and it's sizzling, and it smells so good, it sounds so good, so I'm turning it off, and look at that, deep fried turkey wings. Y'all, this is so delicious. It's unique because it's fried, but it's breaded, and look at this whole spread I have of turkey wings. I'm making this for family, and I just know they're gonna love it, and I love it for myself too. Yeah.